Where do you want to work? In like analysis board
Hmm.
or you will share a screen?
I can make a classroom,
Okay.
and
Okay,
yeah,
then I
let
will
me
just
let me
keep my.
share the link with you.
I think I'll use this then.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is Maria, aka PhotoChess.
Hi.
I think okay. She's also streaming. Her channel knows her.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm streaming on Kick, so we are not overlapping then.
oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. I think I have your Twitch linked, but I can let me pin your kick
Yeah, if you can
in the
ping Kick, it's
chat.
better.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, we'll be doing I guess lesson collab today. Helping Maria maybe with her King's Indian,
Yeah, I
uh,
called it just kidding.
which I'm which I'm always up for. Always up for. Um,
Have you always played King's Indian?
no, I am a relatively recent convert. I started playing it maybe like 6, 7 years ago,
Okay.
and yeah, I basically decided to start playing it because I was struggling against it with white, and I decided to kind of just try to learn it from black's point of view because
If you cannot
either
defeat,
it's like a
if
perfect
you cannot
opening,
defeat
black wins
them,
every
join
game,
them,
or
right?
figure out how to play against it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then since then I've just been playing it like almost every game. Also, I wanted like a good option to like play against lower rated players because I play a lot of open tournaments, and
Well,
I wanted to
people
try to.
hate King's Indian. I heard beginners basically resign against it and just start a new game.
Oh wow, that's strong.
I have the same feeling when I play French. I just want to resign against it and just move on with my life. Do things that make me happy.
Yeah, sometimes I think about this, like, why am I here? Why am I
Okay,
doing-
that's existential.
yeah. Um, but well, hopefully, I mean, hopefully we can help you with that too, maybe at some point. I don't know. In general, if you're struggling against an opening, you should just try to, look up some games where someone crushes it and learn from their games, or like try to pick up a new weapon or something. I don't know.
Yeah, from what I understand, so I started working with a coach.
Great.
You know him. He
Okay.
also knows you quite well. I when
Nice.
I mentioned that I'm gonna study with you, he was like, "Oh yeah, he's quite a good expert now in King's Indian."
Oh, great.
Melik,
Oh, Malik. Yes, of course.
yeah,
We go way back.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Malik is
So
great. Very experienced.
yeah, yesterday we had the first lesson, and he's even gonna join me on some streams, and he gave me some material to work on when I'm on stream, which is great. It's great when the coach is like this on your side, like he's adjusting his studying technique to your needs and what you can do, because I can do so much on stream
Right.
with the viewers as well. And he said, like, when you watch chess base like openings, just pay attention to all the games by Azeri players, because like everyone who is born in Baku knows how to play King's Indian. It's like, okay, wow, that's actually so true. Because when you go through, like, you see Mamidyarov, Mamedov, Rajabov, like all of them just crushing it.
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. There's a couple players now. I would say another good one is Yakubov. He's like a really. I think he kind of stopped playing King's Indian like
Hmm.
lately, but he was playing it up until like very recently, and I
Hmm.
feel like he had some good, in terms of like keeping up with like the latest trends and stuff. He was like
Mm.
a great player to follow.
Mm.
But yeah, Mamedov is definitely like huge Kings Indian guy.
Yeah, Volkov is
Rajabov, unfortunately, he
yeah.
stopped playing it a long time ago.
I still saw him
Very
play
strange.
it in some Blitz games,
Hmm.
but yeah, you're right. But during COVID, I saw some amazing games when I was commentating. I think it was online a Grand Chess Tour or something.
Hmm.
Like when everything moved online, he still like he was invited to a lot of events, and some games were just incredible. Yeah, I was so inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a very fun opening. It's hard to get away from it.
Mm.
Um,
And there are also
so
so many different things you can play, like even when you do play King's Indian, like you
yeah.
can switch between like the idea that that Danya always plays taking on d4 is, for example, completely different from well, I tried learning from Gavain's lifetime repertoire with
Hmm.
his pet line 97. So he never really rushes to take on d4 unless white structure is already completely defined.
Hmm.
That is also a different approach. But I even would be interested to try to play it for white because you can alternate between Petrosian idea and f3 and h3. Yeah, it's a beautiful opening.
Yeah, white also has a lot of options against it, which is not super fun sometimes if you're playing King's Indian every game. But I don't know. In general, I think it's just more important to understand like the ideas and the structures more than
Hmm.
knowing the theory um, super deep.
Hmm.
Because even for me, my opponents will like leave the book at some point and then okay, you have to now play a King's Indian position. Like so, it's kind of yeah. Actually, I thought about one book that I think is really good on the King's Indian is Smirin's book, King's Indian Warfare. I really like that one because it doesn't go into the theory that much, which will kind of change, but it shows you a lot of like the like typical ideas and like thematic plans and stuff, um,
Hmm.
which is for me, I think that's the most important part of the opening is learning the ideas and structures and like what to do in this situation and all that stuff.
Yeah, actually, Melik did mention Smirin as one of very big experts, and he showed me one game that Smirin won against Gelfand,
Mm.
and that was also like there was such like there was like sacrifices on d3. The knights were like d3 c3. Maybe you saw that one. It was really a really
Yeah,
cool
I think so.
game.
Yeah, Smirin also incredible player to study when it comes to the Kings Indian. Like he's
And
got
also that
so many
idea
games.
of Kasparov where he sacks a queen
Mm-hmm.
and like he played it and then like I think the move that he did like people just thought that it doesn't give any advantage to black. But then Melik said like he analyzed it and like if he takes with another, then black actually plays for a win, and
Mm.
it still creates a lot of debates whether you would pick white or black. Like with white you play with the queen, but like in a very passive position, and
The
with
one's like queen versus like two pieces.
two pieces, but quickly white probably needs to give back at least an exchange
Mm.
because it's everything is completely open like that. That dark square bishop is just insane.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. So you're getting back into it. You're gonna be looking to play some tournaments.
Yeah, I want to play starting from next year. So for now, I just want to define my opening openings, like at least like three or four to have to feel more comfortable playing and work on tactics and end games, and then slowly improve. Like my end game goal probably is going for WGM, but I will
Mm-hmm.
start with WIM. Maybe play like 3 4 events in a year. um yeah, also improve online,
Cool.
just to have some motivation and kind of follow. When you follow a plan, it's easier to also track your results and improvements.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. great. I'm in this similar boat. I'm also trying to improve. Going to be playing some tournaments next year. Got a lot of work to do on everything, basically. But yeah.
Are you mostly playing in the US?
Um, this year, I feel like it was kind of half and half Europe, half US. But I very much enjoy playing in Europe a lot more. So that's going to be my main goal for next year.
Yeah, the tournaments in the US are maybe like less diverse players, opponents. Because obviously from Europe to travel to the US, uh, you need to cover your flights if the tournament is not providing it. Feel like in Europe you always get new opponents,
Right.
different countries. I also heard that like it's just easier to get rating in improve your rating in European tournaments. I don't know
Yeah, we're
what's the
not supposed to
reason.
tell anyone that, but yeah, I feel like it is because I mean I don't know. Well, it's more fun in the Europe for
It's like
sure.
still a secret.
Zero. No, I don't. It's definitely just a lot more enjoyable to play in Europe, which I think counts for something. Because it's you can find tournaments that are 1 round per day instead of 2 rounds per day
Oh
is
yeah,
is
I hate
brutal.
double rounds.
And so it's like every tournament in the U.S. it's like double rounds for every day.
And you often
Um,
need to bring your own pieces as well.
yes, pretty much.
Like
Yeah.
that's like insane for me.
Yeah. No, I mean it's funny. To me, that's not like the biggest like issue. Like, but yeah, I mean it's one of many reasons why tournaments in Europe are a lot nicer. You can just show up. You don't have to carry your things. Like there's boards, there's clocks, there's nice sets as well. Like they provide like nice wooden. I played the
And they're
small
always the
open in Italy
same.
that
They're
had like
also
nice
nicer,
wooden
right?
sets for every
Yeah,
player. It's like
yeah,
um
yeah.
and
No, that
yeah,
was like sometimes like it's pop up clubs, not like proper chess clubs.
right, right, for sure. So yeah, I don't know. I think when you enjoy your environment, you end up just taking the tournament more seriously, and hopefully you play better. So what I'm trying to do is just like kind of choose my tournaments carefully. I feel like I would advise the same for you. Just like choose tournaments that like look nice, gonna be
Mhm.
strong, good conditions, and like you can you know prepare
So
and
you
show up with your
feel
best.
happy and like just like more in your element to actually enjoy it. Yeah, and I guess also like we are not necessarily forced to play
Hmm.
because we are not really uh, like professional
Right.
to have to achieve something within like I don't know a certain amount of time or specifically go for GM because that's what you are supposed to do. So why not enjoy at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a very important part. Like you should be enjoying it. Hopefully, you're enjoying the game as well, because classical chess can be long. So you had to
Yeah.
like enjoy the actual playing. Which for me, it's like I haven't always enjoyed it. But then I was reflecting. Okay, why would I play if I'm not enjoying it? And then I learned how to enjoy it again. So now I'm like I love playing classical. Like it's fun again. But
So how did you learn how to enjoy it? That's a very big problem for me because I always had really stressful feeling during the game,
mm,
whether it's classical or not. I was just really stressed playing competitive games.
yeah, no, actually, I think that's a super important topic. So let's get into it. Well, I think one thing that really helped was, I guess, trying to a couple things. So number one, keeping the long term vision in mind, right? Because to become a better chess player, you have to play a lot of chess and you have to play a lot of tournaments. So
Hmm.
just the act of playing a tournament is helping you on your goal, win or lose. Like if it's a good tournament, great. If it's a bad tournament, that's also fine. That just means you have a lot to learn, like, and a lot of lessons to take in before you become a stronger player. Like every good player has a bunch of bad tournaments on their way to becoming a good player. That's just part of the experience.
Hmm.
So for me, what I consider a successful classical game is if I feel like I put in my best effort, like I tried really hard. I like worked at the board, tried to calculate, not be lazy, like all these things, spent my time, and then yeah, win or lose, if I feel like I put in my full effort, I can be happy about that because I know like okay, well that's what it takes to improve in the long run. And if you lose the game, well obviously your opponent either played better than you or they knew the position better than you or something happened. But yeah, of course that's going to be a lesson to take away. But if you get a lesson from that game, then that's good. That's helping you on your journey. So for me, it's like as long as I feel like the game was useful in some respect, then the result ends up not mattering as much.
Mm-hmm. So you're almost like doing a research. Every game you are doing your own chess research on your way to something. Like you are trying this idea, trying that idea, trying new move. Like you're not playing the game just to play and finish it, but to get something useful
Yeah, exactly. I want to
out
learn
of
from
it.
every game. And if my opponent actually has something against the King's Indian and like crushes me because they prepped, like, okay, great. Now I'll know about this line or like now I can look at it like figure out what to
Mm,
do. I want my repertoire to be like rock solid so that I can just play it, not worry about people preparing for me. I can just like show up. I have different options. I know how to play the positions. But I think that only comes from like lots and lots of experience.
do you think someone feels that way? Except for Magnus Carlsen,
Which way exactly?
that they know how to play against everything and like
Oh, that they're like finally like yeah they're like rock
they
yeah
they
probably
cracked
Magnus
cracked
yeah
the opening completely.
maybe yeah Magnus I think is maybe one maybe there's one or two other players. No, there are guys actually that just show up. They don't really study openings. They just show up to like grandmasters. They just show up to tournaments. They just play the same repertoire and they do basically okay. They keep their they keep their level without let's say playing new stuff all the time, right? They just um,
Yeah. Oh, we have
so
a question in chat.
yeah.
What do you think about chess structures and Grandmaster Guide? Uh, there is like 100 pages on King's Indian in there. Did you did you study this one?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great book. I think I've read the King's Indian chapters and maybe a few others. I haven't read like the whole thing, but that book is great. Um,
Mm, okay.
just in general, like yeah, just very good material. The only issue with that book is that it's there's not like three or four of them because it tries to cover all the openings in one book and then so it covers like the key let's say key structures from every opening, but then it's not going to cover everything in the King's Indian or everything in the
Mm.
Sicilian or stuff like that.
So you would like to see the same book, but specifically on the openings that you are interested in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Maybe you should write it.
I'm working on I'm working on courses for Dojo. I'm working on kind of this kind of thing, but for like E4, like a course or a book or whatever that shows you, let's say, typical E4 structures and ideas. So like how to play
Mm.
Sicilian, how to play Rui Lopez,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
yeah. But that's a lot of work. It's a lot of material to find and then annotate. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it because I think it'll be helpful one day. So yeah, and then sometimes you have a very important game that you're playing, like it's for a title or for a tournament prize, and then I think the secret there is like you just have to be grateful that you have the chance to play an important game. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that's the cool part. I think I learned this from David Pruess on this channel. He's just like the chance that you have to play this big game, like that's already great. And the more important games you play, the better you'll become at dealing with nerves in important situations. So the more big games you have, kind of the better. But you've probably felt it too, like the first time you play like on a DGT board, were you kind of nervous, like at a classical tournament?
Actually, the first time I played on DGT board was 3 years ago when I once returned to professional chess
Oh,
after after a huge amount of years since I retired when I was like 16.
right.
Because before then, all the games were not on digital board, and none of my games are digitalized, unfortunately, because I also don't have like most of my games didn't they, like we didn't even have like proper score sheets. We were writing in our own like notebooks, and
Mm-hmm.
I think most of that is lost. So I remember like I won a few games, really nice games against like IAMs in Russia, and that tournament is not anywhere in the database. And I also realized way too late that it was supposed to be rated, but it was not rated for me, and I don't know the reason. I suspect that they wrote off those games to someone else because that
Oh.
was very common in Russia back in the days. So I actually, like when I played this tournament, I played for England in teams because after COVID, a lot of players were not able to travel or were not in the country or for different reasons. Like me and also Shohreh, we both were playing and we are not really professional players. That was like huge stress, not only because it's after such a long time I did not play, but also a team event, also so many
Right.
people whom I usually see with the camera, and like I take photos of them, and suddenly like I'm sitting there and everybody comes to watch my games. I lost almost all of my games, even the ones where I was winning. Um, and that was a very traumatic experience. But then I also realized that I had a K factor because I did not play enough games, FIDE rated games back in the days.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, holy shit. I lost all my rating. So that was like a really cold bucket of water um,
Mm-hmm.
on me. But a great experience, of course, as well, because I practically condensed all of my fears and problems in one tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not stop me from wanting to play again. Okay, I needed to sit on it for a bit, but I'm willing to try again, just not a team event, not immediately.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean that's unfortunate, but it's understandable because it was your first tournament in like a while. So yeah, of course you're gonna be like very like rusty and not kind of in.
Yeah, but DGT was not an issue because I think I was
Mm,
working as a photographer so much. I kind of felt this environment already through so many events and went through a lot of stress at sitting and a very quiet atmosphere of a tournament and waiting for that photograph and analyzing the games and expecting a moment. So like part of the pressure is already like gone through. It doesn't matter whether it's DGT or not.
mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So.
Okay, it's not true. I actually played one digital boards event in in Emirates. It was like Rapid and Blitz one day. Blitz was not digital. Rapid was digital. At least the first few boards, and I was winning completely against Elman Magiramov. Um, and then I panicked and agreed on a draw. That was sad. I was winning like completely. He sacked a piece. He thought he's winning. He thought like he will crush me anyhow. And then I just had a simplification and an extra queen. Oh, sorry, an extra bishop and a pawn. And I, for some reason, thought that he's gonna. He was like so confidently checking that, and then offers a draw. And I was like, oh, I guess I should accept because he is a grandmaster and he
Mm-hmm.
is sure that it's a draw. And then I was like, come on, like if he's sure, he would let him prove it, right?
Right. Of course.
Everybody was so disappointed with me, and I was so upset.
I don't know. Actually, I have another question for you. Do you have a chance to practice like OTB at all, where you're at? Like outside of
Yeah,
tournaments?
yeah, I can come to the clubs, like the club, like the chess club level. Life is quite developed in the Netherlands. Um, Even here in Utrecht, there is a quite a large, big, central, and quite well established club.
Mm,
And like club events are also quite common, and OTB events. Like now, Phoebe Anna Meyer is playing are playing in Amsterdam in Open.
right.
Um, yeah, I don't think I will be playing much OTB outside of like big events. I don't I don't know. Maybe I will be playing like some blitz events in the pubs,
Mm-hmm.
but I prefer to work more at home and stream because I also still travel to events to work as a photographer, so I have to combine everything. I cannot do a lot OTB, um cannot do a lot of photography. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to like dedicate time more strategically. Just prepare more, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's do some chess. Yeah. Maybe you have some
Hmm.
games or questions.
Well, I don't have many good games in King's Indian to do, but like maybe we can start with a question which line do you prefer personally? Can I move? I cannot move the pieces.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, let me give you control on that. There you go.
So so like the guess knight c3 here. So this is like classic King's Indian, right? And here obviously white has a lot of options
Mm-hmm.
like f3, h3, like I don't know, lots of things that white can do. Um, and most common is probably bishop. Is it bishop e2 or knight f3?
Yeah, like
Or
these two
bishop
moves
e2,
together, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, just going for a classical.
yeah. So well, let's say bishop e2
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, knight f3. So do you prefer to play like e5 as soon as possible, or do you? Well, first of all, do you like to take on d4 yourself?
Yeah. Um, right. So yeah, here black has a lot of options, and I've played a bunch of different stuff. E5 and e takes d4. This is the one that I never really got into.
Mm-hmm.
Just personally, I never liked playing this structure. Um, like you often have to go c6, and then this pawn has to be defended
And push
long term.
d5.
Um, if you can get d5 in, then that's nice. But often, like you're not able to, and then you just have to kind of
Mm-hmm.
sit with this pawn. So personally, I never liked it. Although the nice thing is you have a lot of options here. So like if you like those positions, you can absolutely play them. I think and make them work. Like theoretically, I think they're still okay. It's just if you enjoy. Basically, it's a matter of if you enjoy playing that structure or not. Um, in the past, I mainly played a lot of knight c6 here, which I would say is still this is like the big. If you want like really sharp King's Indian battles, like this would be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, I would say knight a6 is standing pretty well in general. Um, so if I was gonna recommend something for like, I'm assuming you don't want to spend all your time studying theory. You just want to play chess. I would recommend this one over like e5 and knight c6, which is gonna be like super super theoretical. Like if you're a correspondence player, I would suggest this one maybe is the best one. But um, for like a practical King's Indian player, I think this is standing pretty well. And it's kind of nice because you avoid a lot of stuff too. Like let's say white castles, you go e5. The exchange variation in this version is a lot more comfortable for black because knight a6 is a nice move and white is already committed to castling, which is not always super aggressive compared to, let's say, if you played e5 here, they can take on e5, and of course this is always something to at least deal with. Um, so yeah, I kind of like knight a6 these days. I feel like it's standing it's standing pretty well.
What about 97? Did you try that?
So 97, yeah, I played a couple times as well, and I think it's also playable. I don't particularly love these kinds of positions just because I feel like, um, well, you're giving up a lot of space a lot of the time, and then you often get some position like, let's say you go c6, d5, c5, something like this. And I know Gawain Jones, he really likes this structure, and this one is very, very playable, but it's a bit tough to play because it's like it's very closed. The engine gives white like +1, +1.2 sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to just kind of like close your eyes to that and just play the
And
position.
just
If you
focus
understand the
on
plans and the
five.
ideas well, you can definitely make it work. Yeah, like typically black is even going like king h8, knight g8, and then
Mm-hmm.
f5.
Mm-hmm.
And
You need a lot of patience, but like look at Gawain. He's
yes.
probably the most patient player I've ever seen. He's just sitting with his tea just like that and just like meditating over his positions. Like I probably need to try that and see if I will be comfortable being so patient. But I can definitely see it working for Gawain.
Yeah, for some players and like there's this other grandmaster, I don't know if you know him, Kozel, who's like he plays these
Hmm.
positions all the time, and for him, I mean he's kept his like 2600 rating for many years, so he's like he totally makes it work. Um, this is playable. My issue with it is like I feel like when you go knight d7, it's a little bit, even if white knows nothing, they'll still be able to just get a nice position just by making
Mm.
almost any natural move they want. Castles, bishop e3, queen c2, rook e. Like they have so many options that it all kind of leads to the same place, and so
So
it's
you're
totally
saying
playable,
that,
but you really have to like it
yeah.
basically.
So you're saying that maybe on lower level like mine, it's better to go for something more sharp and concrete, where preparation for that will be more difficult, and like you can also figure out at the board and just,
Yeah, a bit more challenging,
yeah.
because of course your opponents aren't facing King's Indian every game, so they have to know a lot of stuff. Whereas if you play, for example, this Knight A6 line a lot, you'll be pretty familiar with like the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So especially when it comes to like Blitz and Rapid, if there's not a lot of preparation, you definitely want, I think, to know systems that like you're very familiar with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what I also like about this one is typically what white does is like they castle, you go e5, and let's say bishop e3, rook e1. These are going to be the more challenging moves, but a lot of players they just go d5, just kind of on autopilot, which is playable. But then black just gets a much better version of these kind of typical positions where your knight's on c5 instead of e7, and it's like much better
Yeah.
placed.
Yeah.
So yeah, this position I like a lot, and I think if you check like the Chess like player database, when black starts with knight a6, it's like this is the most likely position you're gonna get: d5, knight c5, queen c2, a5, something like this. Um, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah, so basically if I play d4 myself, then I probably should be ready for this line anyway, so it makes sense to study it with black too, even if I decide to play something else later.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
But I
absolutely. I
feel like
mean, you always have a lot
having
of
having
options.
yeah, having more than one line ready to alternate with is definitely a big plus.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. For me, it's important because people prepare for me, and if I'm just playing one variation over and over again, they'll prep it very deeply, and that's a little bit dangerous. Although even then, a lot of times I don't mind. Like if or my favorite thing is when I'm facing someone who's like an e4 player, and then they show up and they play d4. So
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, like we'll play King's Indian now, but then we're gonna have a King's Indian structure. They don't have a lot of experience there, so like I'm totally happy to take them to the jungle.
Hmm.
So question in Dojo chat: would I consider f6 um, a weak square since the e pawn, like when black goes e5 eventually? Probably not. In general, I would say the dark squared bishop keeps everything on the king side very well defended, and then if white ever trades off these dark squared bishops, the king kind of takes over, and it's like not such a not such a big deal. In general,
Yeah, and even the knight sometimes goes to e8 and supports like the pushing of the pawn, f pawn from there, controlling both g7 and f6, and even
yeah,
d6 sometimes.
sometimes you get, yeah, knight e8 and f5 is very typical here. Absolutely. Um, so, yeah, I would say black is only worried about trading off these bishops if white is then attacking on the h file with like h4, h5, and is
Hmm.
castled queenside. But if that's not happening, then in general, actually, we're usually just happy to trade these off if we get the chance.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes black even wants to trade it themselves with like knight g8 and bishop
Yeah, in
h6.
fact, one interesting line I've been playing might be useful for you against h3 is to go knight d7 early on. And typically, when white starts with h3 without knight f3, it's because they want to keep the knight on g1 and try to develop to e2 and g3
Hmm.
one day. So a lot of players will play like bishop e3 here. It's kind of like
Hmm.
their idea. But then in this line, black can go e5 and then h5 and try for bishop h6.
Mm.
And if you get this in, I think it's pretty interesting position for black to play. The issue for white is if you go queen to d2, for example, to stop it, then after knight c5, there's not a great way to defend the e pawn.
Hmm.
Like if f3, for example, then it's too many weaknesses on the dark squares. Black goes h4, knight h5, bishop f6 somewhere, and just has a ton of squares to play with. You can also consider this like typical plan: knight h7, bishop f6, bishop g5, and
Hmm.
then yeah, just leaving white with a bunch of weak dark squares. And then if white goes bishop d3, then black is typically happy to take this bishop and then play the resulting position. I think like nice idea here is to just bring the other knight to c5 immediately, and then eventually you can castle and play for f5 again.
Yeah,
And
maybe just a5 first to prevent b4.
you can. That's always a question because like, let's say when white is playing like h3, a lot of times they want to castle queenside, which means they might not want to play b4 even
Mm.
if you allow it. But in many cases, it's still useful to play a5. So I wouldn't say like, yeah, there's like a huge rule on this, but generally it's going to be a good move for
Hmm.
sure. Because it can also help you as well. Like you can push the pawn to a4 and then a3 somewhere, and so it can help you if the king is castled queenside. Okay, so that just reminded me because we mentioned like trading off the dark side bishops. This is kind of a nice line because it's annoying for white.
Is there any more host comment on Twitch? I just tried to host and sure if yeah, maybe it doesn't work
Oh
anymore.
yeah, I think hosting's gone. Yeah, I think hosting's done. I don't know what they did with it, but it's kicked
Oh, I
out.
should pin your channel too. It's a great idea. So what's your favorite game that you won in King's Indian?
Ooh, that I want. I guess I have one. Probably my favorite is I won this game against Grandmaster Belus. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you know him, but that was my favorite. It was a very nice game. It was like a lot of nice sacrifices, but also he's beaten me in the King's Indian like 3, 4 times as black. So it was nice to get one on him, where he has to
Nice.
play the white side and then I get to King's Indian him. Um, but yeah, let's see. Oh, so just to finish up with this one, so I feel like a lot of your games you'll get this structure, and so you'll have to know how to play this position with a5.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, it's a matter of sometimes you go b6, Usually this knight is moving somewhere like h5 or e8, and then you're playing for your typical kingside attack. Um, but many players at higher levels these days will play either bishop e3 at this point or rook e1. I would say these are the more critical moves.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have to kind of know what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Against rook e1, I think bishop g4 now is starting to stand pretty well. And if white goes bishop e3, for example, here actually black is pretty happy to take on d4 and just go for this position, like bishop takes c2, queen takes c2, I think c6. And Shanklin, I saw, won a nice game here as black in some tournaments where he just kind of made all the natural moves like rook e8, knight c5, and then his plan was to play for a6 and b5.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed very simple for black to play, actually, his position. I mean, he was equal, least equal, and then, okay, eventually he managed to win. But, yeah, this one seems to be standing pretty well for black right now. Of course, there's other details, like if white goes d5 here, then you go knight c5. And if white plays... Okay, there's a nice trick here. If knight d2, like defending the pawn and offering to trade the bishops, black has this move knight d3, which is fun. So we're hitting the rook, hitting dark bishop as well, and white is a little bit uncomfortable here. I think has to take, and then
Yeah.
if we take the rook, I think this is not good because white can come back, and we lose the second piece, but we can just recapture. And now white can't take this one because then we do take, and the knight's going to get out one of these two ways. So concretely, this ends up with extra exchange for black. So I think white has to go like rook f1, and then black can play f5 here. You can play h5, and you get a good version of these typical positions.
Yeah, you got f5 for free, basically.
Yeah, and white's pretty far behind. Now you did trade off the light squared bishop, but I think you still can get some really you can still get some decent attacking chances here on the king side. So that's rook e1, and then bishop e3. I would say this is like the big kind of critical main line. And black has different options here, but the latest one that's been trending is this kind of funky move queen e7, which I probably wouldn't recommend for like lower rated players. I would say if you're like just playing King's Indian starting out, I would say you can go c6 here, you can go e takes d4, but okay, for more advanced players that kind of do need to know like the latest cutting edge theory, I feel like queen e7, this is the move that's for whatever reason doing well, mainly because Stockfish or Leela suggest it. But
I think Gawain mentions it in his like short and sweet, and that
interesting.
he will have more on it in his main course. So I'm still debating. I think I'm still gonna buy that course.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think it's I don't play every line in the course, but for the most part, I thought it was really, really well done, and you can pull ideas from it.
Yeah, lots of ideas, especially tactical ideas, are pretty amazing. Some of his
Yeah.
games are just crazy. Knight g4, knight f2, and he just like checkmates the king in the center. To be
Right.
able to see such ideas even in other structures, like I think if you saw such ideas in one opening, you can still recognize similar opportunities in other openings.
Yeah, 100%. Like ideas will come up time and time again in different positions. So that's why it's very important to be familiar with like the thematic patterns and just to look at a lot of games because that's where you'll start to recognize these things from.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
Queen E7. Yeah, is like I think with Knight D7 is pretty typical, and here it works as well. Just one thing to know, like if White plays Knight D5, which looks very logical, Black's idea is like you don't really take because this would not be a fun structure to play where White just gets this
Hmm.
easy C file, but instead the idea is just to drop back, and the point is White doesn't really have a great
E6 is kind
continuation
of.
here because e4 is hanging and you want to play c6 next anyway. It's like a good move for you. So, um, and it doesn't really help white to just trade off these knights because white has more space. So
Mhm.
trading pieces generally is going to be in black's favor.
Yeah.
But okay, that's one thing to know because it's not very obvious. Like you play queen e7, your opponent plays knight d5, and then your best move is like queen d8 back. But okay, it works. It kind of works. Um, and yeah, and then otherwise, okay, we're threatening now maybe to take on d4 and take on e4, so white has to kind of deal with this. In general, black's idea here in these kinds of positions is to ask white to clarify the structure, right? You want white either to push d5 or to take on e5, so then you know like what structure you're playing with. What you don't want is for white to keep the tension forever because then it's very hard. It's only when white closes the position then we can start playing on the king side, like knight
Hmm.
g4, f5, and this kind of
Hmm.
thing. So that's why black's idea is to kind of put pressure, follow up with c6, maybe h6, and yeah, basically force white to eventually decide on. And if white just absolutely does nothing, okay, at some point you take on d4, and you can always play that position.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, for me, I think okay. Obviously, you can do more research here, but I would say this is probably where I would start with the classical.
Okay. And do you play differently in Blitz?
Um, well, I meant in classical, like the classical variation, but in Blitz, I was usually going for this one in Blitz, whereas in classical chess, I would play like e5, which is maybe a bit more like in the past, at least, it was considered a bit more theoretically challenging. But yeah, now I'd probably just play knight a6 in any time control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, except my next tournament, you never know. I might play something else. Okay.
Follow Kostya in his next tournament. Let's find its mystery, what he's gonna play.
But well, actually, these days at my level, it's rare that I get uh, classical. Actually, if I look at my games, I would say a lot of them are h3.
Immediately H3, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
think
get a
bishop
lot of
E2
this.
is still the most common in online, at least, because it kind of gives you the most flexibility,
Yeah,
kind
I
of
noticed a
delays.
lot of people like bishop e2 and like knight f3. Online, this is still very, very popular for sure. Um, and then another one is like to play bishop e3 here. This is also kind of more. I would say from White's
Yeah,
point of
but
view,
then you
this
can
is
play
a
knight
very,
G4, right?
very fresh line. What's that?
You can play knight G4 here. Oh, sorry, no, you cannot.
No, no,
No,
you
that
can't.
if knight is on F3, that's why they play bishop E2.
Yeah, exactly.
But then
Um,
you can wait for knight F3 and then play knight G4. So they have to play H3 anyway.
so White's idea here actually is often to just play like h4, h5, and then g4.
Mm.
And so it's I mean, it's not super obvious because yeah, like what do you do with the knight? But eventually the knight comes out somewhere. Um, but yeah, if you imagine they get like g4, g5 in, then you have to move your knight. Then they can develop without.
Yeah, no, if they get G4, G5, you also cannot really play F5 later. Like I don't know what black can play here then.
Yeah,
Play on the queen side instead.
this one is tricky. What I would suggest here, just since we're here, I don't know if you'll get this a lot because this is like. Well, actually, I think you will because it's definitely like it's been very trendy. But I like that you can play knight a6 here. And
Mm.
the nice thing here is that mm, for the most part, I think white's like okay. There's different options for white, but I think their most challenging move is knight f3, which allows you to kind of just transpose back into normal knight a6 lines. So it kind of keeps your repertoire consistent. And then if white castles here, then we have the same position like with bishop e3, and you can play this move or some other move. But the idea behind this one is to play for c5. So if white is playing very aggressively on the king side, like with g4, for example, I think g4 here is a bit dubious after c5.
Ah, so you delay E5 because
Right.
with E5, G4 becomes stronger.
Yes, because when you play e5, it allows white to close the center, and then
Hmm.
they're very happy to have this position. King will castle queenside, and this is kind of exactly what white is looking for.
Okay. I vaguely remember Jones also touching on that a little bit,
Yeah. This I'm sure will come up. Um,
although I don't see that move now. Maybe he only mentioned it because I cannot find it. Interesting. I guess it's in the main course. By the way, I appreciate that your viewers have just their strengths in their nicknames, so you know immediately whom you're talking to and how to break down the ideas.
I see, like 1800 strength. Okay, ironically, they're actually much stronger than that.
Okay, because I have a guy with the name Too Stupid to Play Chess.
Uh huh.
We just know where we stand from the
You know where
beginning.
it's at.
Nice.
That's funny. Okay, there's one nice trick here. If white goes g5, black to play.
We can take on no. Let's see, take. No, that doesn't work. There's something with tactics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take. Um, take. And also that file, that diagonal is. Hmm. No, this doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Well, we take on d4. No, no, they can take a knight. Hmm. Well, 1800 in terms of kids theory is it's pretty good. Hmm. Ah, is it knight g4? No, it's something with d4 and knight g4.
Mm-hmm.
But in
Yeah.
which order? Knight g4 first, right?
Exactly. Knight g4. So black doesn't. You don't like win anything here, but it's just important to notice you can play this move because it is very helpful for us to trade
Very
pieces.
annoying if you didn't see it,
And
obviously.
we're getting a bishop too. So
Yeah,
ideas if bishop takes g4, we just take back.
on take on d4.
And then if
And then
white
also
takes
our
this one,
queen is coming, and knight c5
sit
will be easy
here.
to play.
And we get this position, which is actually Marazzi bind structure, all of a sudden. But it's a very nice Marazzi for black because you have a extremely strong bishop, and white is. I mean, the Marazzi generally like g4, g5 is not what white is trying to do. As white has
Yeah,
now
this
just
looks like Maruxi bind with Grob. Combine like some kind of hybrid.
that went wrong basically. And yeah, so this position is
Hmm.
just like very very nice
Yeah.
for black. I had this in the game actually. Like my opponent played g5, and I didn't know about this exact position, but I also knew like I didn't have this in my notes either. So I was like, so I just like spotted this over the board, and I realized, oh, this is quite good.
Well, it's nice that you started thinking in that way because when you play an opening a lot, sometimes like you get these blind spots
Exactly.
uh, because you just don't think about it as an opportunity. So you just try to play fast so you have more time later.
Right. And it's like, yeah, why haven't I seen this move before? Basically,
Yeah.
you ask yourself. Actually, I had another game. I remember. I think I'm not sure exactly what the move order, but it was like knight f3. I think it might have been like knight a6, bishop e3, e5, and then so here like main move would be castle. d5 is also playable here, where I think black should just immediately go. I think either knight h5 or knight g4 and play for f5. Um, but my opponent played knight d2, and which I hadn't seen before. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I punish this? What's the drawback to knight d2? Maybe I can take on d4 somehow. And then I realized, oh, I have knight g4.
Ah, okay. Good
Again this
idea.
is super annoying. But these
I
games
think
actually,
I
this
got
one came
something
first, but these were
similar.
like years apart, so it was like
I think I got something
not
similar and
fresh.
played against me as well once.
Mm.
It's especially annoying in Blitz online.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Throws you off. And then black also can throw in a 5 very quickly because they're already castled.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, obviously very helpful to know um, these uh, these ideas. Um, yeah, I think here, apart from g4, white can also go h4. Then I think black should go h5, and then this position, of course, is very very complicated. But in general, I think it's pretty healthy for black. Like you're not getting checkmated here. Um, White usually just has nothing better to do than to just start developing castle normally, and then it's a pretty pretty playable structure. It can go c6 and
Hmm.
e5 and so on.
Yeah, makes sense. And does
Yeah.
black do we want to trade that bishop on e3 or do we just stay like this?
Um.
Like for instance, is
Hmm.
if white does play queen d2,
Oh,
do
I
we
see.
need to defend h6?
Yeah, it's a good question here. I would say in general, no. Like a lot of times, in my experience, when the bishops come off, it's really white that has bigger problems on the dark squares than black.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think there's very few moments where I would go king h7 in a similar situation.
Because also knight f3 and knight g5 can be annoying.
Yeah, but you also have the g4 square. So on queen d2, let's see. I could be wrong. I would probably play c6, but we can just look at this. Just might be instructive. Let's say bishop h6, and let's say we just go e5 here. Because if the bishops are going to come off, I'm happy to play e5 and start fighting for the dark squares. It also helps that our queen can be closer to the king side if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, imagine white maybe plays d5. I'm not sure. Maybe there's another move. But d5, knight c5, let's say. Attacking the pawn. I don't know. We can go f3 for white. Um, but then it cuts off the knight from using this square. And if knight h3, I think we're probably pretty happy to just trade on h3 and
Mm-hmm.
get our pieces out. Um,
Yeah, now that the pawn is on h4, I guess our bishop is not as useful sitting there waiting for some tactical opportunities. Also, white
Right.
probably will castle long
Yeah.
side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do
And
you do with this bishop, by the way? Like, if white is castling long, so there is no ideas with bishop takes h3 sacks.
yeah, I
What
would
is
say
this?
this is not necessarily a bad bishop, but we are often happy to trade it off just because we're lacking space, and so it
Hmm.
just helps to trade off pieces. But
But how do you trade it off if knight doesn't go on h3?
yeah, in general, I would say like the bishop goes to d7, and then it you try to play for like b5, b4, basically,
Hmm.
and then one day maybe the bishop comes out to like b5 somehow.
Hmm.
But that's kind of a long ways away. Like in general, I think the bishop just kind of sits on d7 and just waits. But it is a very helpful piece because like okay, you stop knight h3, you also cover the f5 square, so it's like there can be some sacrifices on f5. It can help defend against. Um,
Hmm.
and if the structure changes, sometimes like for example, black takes on d5 and then white wants to take with a piece. Not that this is good, but sometimes this happens, and then of course the bishop just can find the new square very easily. Um, like on e6, I think it would be good.
Yeah, this is even reminds me of a bit of Sveshnikov line like
Mm-hmm.
structures,
Yeah, now
but a bit weird
now
one.
it would be yeah with knight d5. Do you play any Sicilian or have you played any Sicilian
I
positions?
actually all my life was playing Sicilian, and I think that was a big mistake of me.
Oh.
Um, I mean, I started playing, like, I started working with a coach when I was 8. So
Mm-hmm.
what the coach shows me, I try to play.
Mm-hmm.
But I realize now that all my life I was basically uncomfortable playing Sicilian entirely. Like, of course, I got some understanding, I memorized some lines, but I never really felt comfortable in it.
Mm.
And okay, cover your ears, chat, but I was more comfortable playing French when I did speedrun because I got a sub goal incentive. So basically we reached the sub goal, so I was playing speedrun in French and I was like cursing it until I started playing. And then when I started playing, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I realized that I prefer to play closed positions.
Mm. Well, that's great.
I like I find comfort in playing open positions, but on my terms.
Mm-hmm. No, no, that's awesome. I have the opposite experience. Like I grew up playing French, and then I realized it wasn't the right opening for me. But I think it's very important to choose the openings that are correct for you. Do you still play French?
No, no, I only tried like during speedrun and I was like reviewing and adjusting. I did study a little bit of Vinegar with White, so I like knew some ideas how to play for black, but I basically know nothing about the
Mm-hmm.
French.
Mm-hmm.
Only the multiple ways I lost against the French over the years because I was playing e4 all my life. Again, I realized I prefer to play d4. So basically, like, I played all the wrong openings. Okay, maybe not wrong openings, I just did not study enough or the right way for them.
Right.
I was just like trying to memorize some of the openings that I liked, and I ignored everything I did not like. And then when something I don't like the French or um, with black, they play the dragon. No, not the dragon. They play like close knight c3 Sicilian. Um, like all this was like I don't know, like stroking against the fur for me. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, come on, why do you keep playing? And of course, people start playing against me more and more. I realized later that they were just preparing against me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, like, it was hardly any chess base or anything. They were just like sharing knowledge, and I kept I kept facing the same openings, which I lost already, and yeah, that was really annoying.
Yeah. Um, So it makes sense for you to maybe like pick up the French because you mentioned you still don't like playing against it. So like
Hmm.
um, that's kind of a good opportunity because either it was similar for me with the King's Indian. Either it's just such a good opening that you're gonna do great with it as black, or you will realize like why it's not such a great opening, and then you'll learn
Hmm.
better what to do against it with white. I would say from my experience, I definitely started playing better against the King's Indian after I started playing the opening because with white I could better
Hmm.
understand what black wants, what black is looking for. I can predict their ideas better, and then it got a lot easier. Um,
Yeah, if you cannot defeat them, join them.
exactly. I mean, yeah. If you always like the positions from the other side, then
Yeah, just play them.
you should
Yeah,
try it.
that's the way. Like, if somebody played something really interesting against you, and you're like, oh wow, like I've never seen this before, just learn it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Try playing it as well, and then you will find the flaws in it and how to play against them.
Um, yeah, very important to find your openings. I remember I was playing French for a while, and then the same Melik at a chess camp. I remember he told me he was like, he's like, why are you playing French? It's like you clearly want space, and you're always trying to gain space. Why not just play e5 on move one? Just take the space from the first move, so you're not like suffering with the French every game. And I was like, oh yeah, why not? So I started playing e5 from there from the first time, and then okay, slowly helped me like develop as a player. And then now I play Sicilian, but yeah, you can always, of course, come back to it. I still think Sicilian is great, but of course, it's not.
It's
What's more
just so
important
much
is finding the
easier to,
positions that you like.
yeah, like you need to be Magnus Carlsen in order to play Sicilian on 2700 level, because like people will be constantly preparing against you, like in all the huge amount of lines.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering them all very deep is impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you play the same opponents all the time, like they used to do in Grand Chess Tour and CCT and all that stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
you know what you will face more or less, then it's fine. But for me, it will be very difficult, being out of practice and like not really familiar with all the theory in the past like 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's pros and cons. The cool thing is like because theory has kind of advanced a lot. There's a lot of lines that like you used to kind of have to know. Now you don't really have to know
Mm.
them anymore. Um, and it's much
In
easier to
theory,
catch up on stuff these days than it used to be.
yeah, but in theory, you don't have to know. But your opponent who knows that you did not play all this time will be like, oh, I can go into something more dubious, but she will not know that because she kind of went past it while preparing because computer said, oh, it's not so good anymore.
Yeah, it's a risk. It's a risk. But okay, ultimately, I think it still just comes down to what kinds of positions you want to play because like this is selling, especially in an opening where even if white gets like a good position, it's still just going to be a huge fight, right? Um, and I've had the experience from the opposite side where I'm mostly a d4 player, but sometimes I want to play e4 against my opponent. But even if I do get some kind of variation on them, they're still going to outplay me in the resulting middle game just because they have so much more experience with it. So it's like there's pros and cons. And if you try to find an advantage against the Niter, for example, you're gonna struggle really hard as white. It's like white has their own. So it's kind of it's back and forth. Like it goes both ways. People asking me
Mm.
which Sicilian I play. I used to play a few different things actually. I used to play Taimanov, then I switched to Sveshnikov. Now I play Sveshnikov and Kalashnikov, a bit of both.
Yeah,
Um,
that's funny. I played Sveshnikov and Kalashnikov basically all my life.
oh, cool, cool, cool. Yeah,
Not super
Kalashnikov kind of
successfully,
came
but
back. It's now I think very very playable, which is cool. Mainly thanks to Hikaru, in my opinion.
yeah, I also picked it up again thanks to Magnus course on Chessable.
Oh, for
But it's still
Sveshnikov.
like I feel like white, no, usually what people who play with white e4,
Mm-hmm.
they know like the typical structure in Sveshnikov Kalashnikov, and it's just so easy for them to throw in the first like 10, 12 moves,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's yeah, you just need to know all of the structures, and
Yeah,
I
I
guess
agree.
playing for a living hard.
It can be a bit annoying to play the same Sicilian every single game. Um, so it's actually better if you mix it up, which I think is how Magnus does it, because he doesn't play like the same line every game. Sometimes he
Mhm.
plays Khan, sometimes he plays with Knight C6, sometimes he plays Knight Orf. So like that's I think maybe a important part of it as well is just mixing it up. Um,
Mhm.
so your
Yeah, but
opponents
Magnus
never fully know.
has like perfect memory,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like
Magnus,
us.
Magnus is Magnus. But
Of course,
for
sure,
everyone
you can
else, you
like
can like slowly mix it up. Like I played
yeah, yeah,
Taimana
for
for
him playing
several years, and
Sicilian
then
is perfect.
yeah,
It's ideal. Like he remembers all of the lines.
mm-hmm.
He remembers positions from the World Championships played 100 years ago. He will recognize the position with just half pieces on the board. He will
Right,
be already like, oh, this is that game between this and this guy, game number this and it ended with these moves. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. I saw ChessBase can recently do that as well. So ChessBase they just caught up to Magnus. Like they have this feature where if you start setting up a position, they'll maybe tell you like where it's from. But no, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I also tried playing Löwenthal, but once people know that you sometimes play it, they prepare and it's just GG.
Yeah, that one
It's
I'm
very
not a
fast
fan
to
of. I'm
learn.
not a fan of any opening that you wouldn't play if you your opponents know you're playing it or like you're aware that like so if you're only gonna prepare something as a surprise weapon, I feel like a lot of times it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, unless you prepare for a match maybe and it's a lot
Yeah,
of
for
games and you want to prepare something specifically for that opponent.
one time match, sure, sure, right. But yeah, learning. So a lot of times I see people like learning a whole opening because it's like, oh, it'll be a good surprise weapon. It's like, okay, but you'll play it once and then it'll be in the database,
Yeah.
and then like how often are you gonna play it after that? So
Yeah, that's what I played with Black in like 3 games at the European teams, and yeah, Malcolm Payne was not very impressed with me. He said you're playing streamer opening and you're playing like a streamer. Like you saw a nice move, and I can see that you are like still trying to push that move to work while calculating and seeing that it doesn't work. And then he's saying, well, then just play it anyway. Don't waste time because you are not gonna you're not gonna um kind of part with that idea anymore once you saw
mm-hmm,
it.
right.
So like I see how your streamer brain is working. And yeah, to say the least, they never invited me to any team event again.
Oh, that's good advice. But yeah, it's cool. You have a lot of clubs in Netherlands. I mean, you have hopefully a chance to play like maybe some like weekly or local club events. I think that would be very helpful. But,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure. Um, the players here are also pretty hardcore. They play 2 or sometimes even 3 classical games a day at a tournament while drinking beer starting from the morning.
oh,
And I'm like, well,
oh,
that's like next level of endurance.
yeah. I wouldn't recommend that.
I mean, they probably also eat certain types of cookies at the same time, but I'm definitely not doing that.
But yeah,
I
you can
know
take
playing chess
advantage.
is painful sometimes, but I don't need medicine for that.
Hmm. Right. Uh, okay, let's see. Do you have any other questions?
Well, I guess I will need to play some games in order to understand like where I am struggling, but Yeah, I usually was struggling between like deciding between knight c6 and knight a6, like when do you
Mm-hmm.
play this, when do you play that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the masters were always smoking outside. Yeah, I mean, in Russia, people were drinking and smoking at the board, no problem. Some people are still doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I guess the main question is what's better, to play immediately e5, to play knight e6, knight
Mm.
c6,
Mm-hmm.
try knight e7.
So if you're gonna play either knight a6 or knight d7, it's better to, in my opinion, to just play it here, because then with e5, white gets better versions of de and like Petrosian as well. Whereas with knight a6, they have to kind of commit to something first, like castling
Mhm.
or developing the bishop, and then yeah, you get a much better version, especially of the exchange. So, which is not super popular, but it is annoying sometimes. Um, so if you're gonna play for knight a6 or knight d7, I would start with it and then go e5. And if you're gonna
Okay.
play for the knight c6 lines, then I would start with e5, and then you have this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, of course, yeah, it's all playable. But yeah, I would say one of these two are going to be the more flexible ones.
Mm-hmm. Maybe chat also has questions, guys.
Yeah, folks.
So what's the most annoying idea for you in the King's Indian?
Or like to face.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, maybe not super annoying. Maybe the fianchetto variation. It's probably not super fun. We'd have to go back, but yeah, if white plays for g3 without e4.
All right. Yeah, that's actually something that I faced, and I had no idea what to do against it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of good options. There's also totally playable for white if you want something straightforward and you don't want to like again study a bunch of theory, but something simple. You're not going to get the biggest advantage, but it is kind of pleasant. And if you like Catalan positions, it would work. Um, for some reason, let me just start a new
I
game
think
here.
we kind of like deleted the first four moves
Yeah, I
somehow.
don't know. I don't know how that happened. But I started a second one. If you're on this, and knight f3. Okay, so this is like the key position where you have a lot of choices as black. Um, so one nice thing is that knight d7 and e5 is always playable.
Mm-hmm.
And this is totally, you can totally do this if already you like the e takes d4 positions in general. This is kind of a better version, slightly better of those. So this is totally playable. Um, and here lately, I think white often goes e4, and then again, let's say e takes d4, knight d4, knight c5, um, rook e1, rook e8, h3, h6. It's pretty
Is there idea to
typical.
play f4 at some point, or not really?
F4.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times white does want to prepare this one in the long run. They can't do it super early because um, it's hard for white to play e5. You have knight h5 as a resource, like hitting g3, and then with this setup here, it's hard for them to develop their bishop to e3 because then the e pawn hangs. So basically, white has to be a bit slower. Usually, they're playing like b3, bishop b2, queen d2, rook d1, and yeah, just and then eventually playing for f4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I don't love these kinds of positions, but they are very playable. And if you like them more, they might work for you. But yeah, in general, black is just kind of playing the typical like c6, a5, a4. The point of this h6 move is to play like knight h7, knight g5 in some cases, and then you kind of bother white, you can drop back to e6 and trade off this knight as well.
Cool.
So this is totally playable. Personally, it's not like my cup of tea. I like this line with knight c6 here, which is maybe probably a bit sharper. The idea of castles e5. And here you're just kind of asking white to clarify the center immediately. Either they take, which I would say is like maybe the main line, and then we get this position, which theoretically I think black is doing fine. Okay, it's some theory here, but in general, black is okay. Or white can advance d5, and then I like to go back to b8 here, and then play like a5, knight a6, and we get this kind of position, which is pretty... Here at least we get more of like a King's Indian type of position, which is what I'm aiming for as black. And then
Yeah,
can
and
play
then
for
both knights are
f5.
going to c5.
This is all, yeah, very, very common. So I would say, yeah, knight d7 is kind of the easier choice if you don't want to look at a bunch of theory. Knight c6 I would say is sharper, but totally playable. I think Gawain suggests c5,
Yeah, I think so.
which theoretically stands totally fine. I've played this a bunch of times, and in general I think black is okay here, but the drawback to this one is just I think there's a lot of options for white. Like they can go d5, dc. After dc, they have like a million options there as well. They can castle and then go dc. So it's a lot of theory here, I feel like. But okay, if you like Benoni positions, then a lot of times you can get something like this. And then this of course is super playable for black. But you have to be willing to play Benoni, which is not for everyone.
Yeah, we had a question, like we had a comment in the chat by Anatoly Kaprov that he switched from Benoni because. But did you mean that the Benoni is garbage? I don't think it's garbage. Like a lot of lines, of course, became maybe outdated, but it's still played a lot, and the ideas from Benoni are still used in a lot of openings, like London,
Yeah.
right? Benoni is often used against the London.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I would say like in the modern King's Indian, there's a lot of lines where it makes sense for black to switch to a Benoni structure. Like f3 is very typical for black to castle and play for c5. And
Yeah, against f3, Gawain also does not play e5. You
yeah,
need to switch to c5.
yeah, here I think c5 is kind of taken over, because because in general, like when white is playing f3 or h3, they're trying to castle queenside. For me, I have this belief that like if white is trying to castle queenside, then it doesn't make a lot of sense to play for e5 and allow them to close our
Yeah,
bishop.
f5 already doesn't have enough weight as well,
Yeah,
so you might as well immediately play c5 and prepare a6 b5.
right. So if I think their king is going queenside, then yeah, c5 makes a lot more sense. So it is very useful to be familiar with Benoni ideas because you will sometimes have to play a Benoni structure. It could be a good version of Benoni, but still you have to kind of know what you're doing there.
Mm-hmm.
Against g3, this is definitely considered one of the better Benonis because the bishop on g2 isn't so good in this kind of position. So this, of course, is very playable. But yeah, I found knight c6 kind of the most like King's Indian type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
But there are lots of lines. For example, like bishop f5 here, I think is also very solid, with the idea to go knight e4. This isn't good to play against low-rated players because on knight h4 you basically just have to go back bishop c8. But if you're okay with this repetition, then this is also like a very simple line to play where you're just playing for knight e4. And something like this.
Okay, but you can still try and go back and then change
Yeah,
to something
exactly. You
like
can always do something different if you want.
But otherwise, you are
yeah.
not really moving that bishop, right?
What do you mean?
The c8 bishop. You
Mm-hmm.
are you're also not in a rush to move it
Yeah,
against three bishop g2.
yeah, it doesn't have like a great because we don't. I think typically we don't really want to trade it off. This would be the only kind of line where it does something with bishop f5 knight e4. But yeah, in these lines, for example, I guess it kind of depends. If white takes, then bishop is coming out to e6 in this
Mm-hmm.
kind of more open structure. But if
Mm-hmm.
they're going d5, then yeah, usually this bishop isn't doing anything until for a while. Maybe it goes to d7, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with white, you're playing e4?
With white, I'm mostly a d4 player, but yeah, lately I've been playing some e4 as well, and then some. I also play like knight f3 sometimes. Actually, a lot of knight f3 lately. I just try to mix it up with white, but yeah, usually I was playing d4 and knight f3,
Mm-hmm.
and then
So not London.
no, I've basically never played London. Um, not
You're not.
totally against it, but like yeah, I don't. I find it kind of boring.
Okay.
just just not for me. But there are more fun. Like you can play with like knight c3, of course. So there are like more fun versions. But
Yeah, that's what actually Malik recommended me to play London in starting with knight c3 and then seeing what the opponent does because if the opponent goes for king's Indian, you don't want to end up with a bishop on f4.
oh, so like here knight c3.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And then if d5.
Uh, I suppose you play bishop f4.
Oh, then bishop f4. Okay, so you would still have to kind of play this position, but it's not
Yeah,
like
but with king's Indian, you don't really want to play d5, right?
yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's not the same thing. I would say it's not like it's yeah. It's just a very specific position, but it's not. It's kind of King's Indian Grunfeld like hybrid almost.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unusual, of course, because white like yeah, classic King's Indian white has like e4, c4, and no pawns on d6, all that stuff. Okay, but this makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against the London. I think it's very like playable. It's just yeah, you have to enjoy the structures you're getting, but I think actually it's a perfectly fine weapon. Like a lot of players play it, you know, and because there's a lot of different move orders with the London. Like when you play bishop, you can like e3, knight f3, knight d2, c. Like you can try different things. Obviously, you can put the knight on c3, so it's a lot of room there for like experimentation and growth.
Yeah, and also Jabava London.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Jabba is pretty annoying. I would say people probably are not super well prepared against it in general.
Well, a lot of people are prepared to play it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if many people prepare to play against it because it's very concrete, but it definitely became very, very popular. Like even when I opened chessable courses and went for like London, there was so much on Jabava London
Mm.
and nothing against Jabava London. There was like no course refuting the Jabava London. I'm
Right.
sure a lot of courses are touching it, but nothing like specifically like how people are like how to play against King's Indian, how to play against I don't know the dragon, anti-dragon. A lot of courses on anti-dragon,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing against Jabava London.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe just like a part of the repertoire, right? But like, yeah, because as black, you don't see it every game. You just see it one out of every, I don't know, 8 or 10 games or whatever it
Mhm.
is. But um, yeah, it's definitely a major sideline now. I would say.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Just
mean
yeah,
knowing
insane.
that structure is also pretty important. So you're playing more white now, and what do you play with white? I mean with e4 with white more you play more e4,
Yeah, I
and
started playing more e4, and just going for like open Sicilian,
mhm.
Italian game. Um, just kind of the mostly like the main lines with e4. Mainly because it's just interesting for me. Like I just want to play like the classic e4 positions. And I told you I was working on this e4 course, so I also want like my own experience playing e4. So it's yeah, I guess it's more of a growth thing. I'm not a great e4 player. I'm much more like d4 positional, but it's also fun to like attack and you know play sharp chess. So I'm trying to do that as well.
And the course is for your school or is it for Chessable?
I'm not sure. It would probably start off for just like the dojo like training program, but maybe eventually it'll hit Chessable. But it's still very far. I feel like it's a long ways away. I have a lot of like games to annotate and puzzles to make and stuff like that. But yeah, probably for the site first, for like our
Mm. So you're
training
also
program.
making puzzles specifically for that opening.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a huge help is to just solve puzzles from your opening, like to see typical ideas or whatever. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think. So I
Yeah,
actually have like I have some King's Indian content on
yeah,
our.
that's what I wanted to ask because not so many people are doing that. A lot
Mm-hmm,
of trainers on Chessable, they provide examples like opening disaster, how did it go wrong with this move, how Grandmaster messed it up on a amateur level, like, look, this is so cool. But they don't make it harder because I guess the majority of consumers like light reading and easy, just like skim through and
mm-hmm,
um, no, nothing really challenging. And I also noticed that most of courses where there are puzzles, unless they are for very much beginners, they are not really doing so well on Chessable.
mm,
So I guess it's simply um, like the offer and the what's the demand and supply, right? So like those who want puzzles, they will find what they need, but openings are always in more demand. But I feel like if there will be a course on specifically typical mistakes, typical strategic decision making
mm-hmm.
in that specific opening, like this can be really good for more advanced players, which also means not your majority of consumers on the courses, but that's something I would be interested in.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think it could be useful for lower rated players as well. It's just like the material has to be a little bit easier. But I think like studying model games and solving thematic positions or looking at typical, yeah, like strategic ideas, I think for me, I think that's the
Hmm.
most useful part of an opening. And I usually only get it myself when I go into chess space and like start studying a bunch of games. Then you'll see ideas pop up, and then you kind of like learn it yourself doing it that way. But yeah, it'd be great if there was material on it already for
Yeah,
different
so
kinds of
far
positions.
as I know, like I saw something similar, like I saw something automatically generated on leeches,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like their like how they have like a lot of puzzles generated from the games.
Mm-hmm.
But and somebody actually simply took a lot of them and just sold it to Chessable, which is very smart. Like
Mm-hmm.
I definitely admire this approach. Just like, oh, this is free and this is and here they can pay for it. Why not? Just let's take it. But like
That's
if
funny.
it was a bit more curated and specifically dedicated to like specific structures and openings, that would be really cool to
Right.
have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely would be interested in a course like that on King's Indian and probably on London too, but more on King's Indian.
Right. Well, I'm close actually. I got a King's Indian course for the dojo, um, and that has some stuff like it's got some model games and some exercises, but I have to add more to it because I feel like it needs more material. But Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you, by the way. And if you like it, you can let me know.
Yeah, I don't know how you approach to this, since like this is obviously your product which you want to sell, and I don't want to expose too much on it on stream,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they're like we want to make more of like example. Sorry, I think my I think my food order is here. I need to
Oh
get
yeah, yeah.
it.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Just a second.
I'll talk to chat. Hello, chat. Um, yeah, we'll discuss the course. In general, I'm pretty. Um, I don't mind if someone does the course on stream, because I feel then people will see the course. They can, if they like it, then they themselves will want to go and do it. So I feel like it's just good marketing. I haven't seen the King's Indian attacking manual, Toby, but that looks interesting. Might be similar. I like Maria's setup. She has a very nice aesthetic. The lighting, the chair. We're still working on our thing here. We got Pikachu school, but we got we're still developing our background here. Oh, someone pinged me. Oh, okay. I missed something in the Discord. Question: is there a good resource for how to play d6, c6, a5 structures? Um,
Oh, sorry.
Not
I'm
sure.
starving.
Yeah, yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm gonna go get some breakfast soon. So, there's a question about a resource on the structures with ED4 and D6, C6, A5. I'm not totally sure. I mean, I remember there. I'm sure there are some courses that focus on E takes D4 positions. Actually, Grandmaster Dejan Bochkov, I remember he wrote a book on the King's Indian that had a lot of E takes D4 lines, but it's from many years ago, so it might not be so theoretically relevant. But I remember it had a lot of E takes D4 ideas. That might be one worth checking out.
Hmm.
Um,
Cool.
but
But yeah,
yeah.
I see already there is an interest on the class. Reckless Fury, what class do you mean?
Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, Plicta, his course is also about E takes D4. Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, Plicta, he has some good chessable stuff, so that might be one worth checking out as
Yeah,
well.
that's a lot of. Hmm. Yeah, is your course already published?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll set you up. You'll need an account for our site, but I feel like we have a pretty good. You'll see we got like you can play through the games there. You can solve exercises there, and we
Mm-hmm.
have like PGNs as well. So I feel like we have a pretty good setup. Um, and yeah, I don't mind actually at all if you do it on stream. I don't know. I think it's good exposure, and it's like
Really?
yeah, it's fine.
Well, I guess I'm not the size of Hikaru Nakamura to like show it to thousands of people, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There are videos too. You can watch those as well. Because I think I'm going to be adding more to the course anyway. So
hmm
it's kind of, I don't know. It's fine. I
yeah,
don't
and
mind.
also I'm doing it at my own pace and my own with my own like maybe skipping through something and like focusing more on something, and so those who want
Right.
to study it themselves, they probably will want to get it anyway.
Yeah. And I'll just say the King's Indian course, it's not the only opening course we have. Jesse has a course on playing like E4. David has a Najdorf course as well. So hopefully it will inspire people to check out some of our
hmm
other stuff too. But Dojo training program members, I'll just say, they get access to everything. I think we sell the opening courses individually for something like $20 or something. But if you're a training program member, you get access to everything, and then you can just log in and just study whatever repertoires you're interested in, which is cool.
Okay.
So
Well,
there's the pitch.
maybe I should become an affiliate.
That is available actually, totally possible if you want.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
guys, don't subscribe yet. Let me get an affiliate link first.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll set you up with that. I mean, no, we're the program takes up a lot of my time actually. A lot of my energy just goes to building it because
No, of course.
I don't have time
Uh,
to teach everyone obviously. So it's neither does David or Jesse. So it's our way of helping as many people as
but
possible.
you're working not only for now, it's also for the future because you can teach only one pupil at a time, right? You cannot do a lot,
Yeah,
but this course is something that will be there forever.
yeah. I'm hoping it'll have a lot of students and
But it's a lot of time investment. I really respect that. I was approached by Chessable multiple times asking
mm-hmm,
to make a course of my own, and I was just like, realistically, it will probably take me 5 years to make one.
mm-hmm.
So I don't even want to waste anyone's time and put any set up any expectations.
Yeah, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work. I would only recommend doing it if like if that's your sole project for like 2 3 months. It's the only thing you're thinking about. Then
Yeah.
I have
And
one
or you
course.
should
Yeah.
have someone like doing a lot of work for you. Like I'm sure Hans Niemann did not make his course by himself alone.
Hmm.
Fabiano also did a lot like from his files, but it's still a lot of structuring that should be done by someone else. Like there is no way they were sitting there and writing script for their courses.
Yeah. That's the other thing that might be helpful actually is to work with someone like you can. I know Chessable sometimes they do this thing where they have one person that like does the material and then one person does the videos,
A lot,
and
yeah.
they split that up, which I think makes sense. Um,
Yeah. And I also think having feedback is important because then you can also adjust your course based on feedback and like a lot of people asking
yeah.
the same questions, and then you can like maybe move something around so it's more structured.
Oh, absolutely. That's probably the main reason why I probably wouldn't write any more books at this point. If I was going to do something, it would be a course. Because, yeah, you
Mm.
write a book, it's written forever, and then that's it. You make a
Yeah,
mistake,
yeah.
it's just
And
in there. But Chessable, you
unless you
update it.
can be like Averbach 15 editions or like Dvoretsky with his endgames,
Right.
also like 20 editions of the same book.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely keen on to try. Could be a good collab. I can be your um like not so secret client, right? Not so secret customer who is
Oh, I
sent
see.
to check everything.
Uh huh. Gotcha.
Especially that my knowledge is basically zero, so it's like in tennis, you don't need to change my repertoire to play your alliance
Mm-hmm.
because I don't really have any in the first place.
Right. Okay. Like a blank slate.
Yep,
Nice.
exactly.
No, cool. I'll be curious to see what you think of it. I mean, I think it's good. I also it'll push me to do more on it because yeah, like there's like some model games there, like some annotated games that I think are good to
Mhm.
study, but there's a lot more that I want to add to it. So that'll motivate me to.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna take the the whole subscription account.
Oh, oh, nice. Yeah, yeah. We'll get you an account. That's very easy, and then you'll just have access to everything.
Perfect.
Sweet. Okay, and then yeah, let me know what you think about the site. Actually, it's a cool site. We're building it. What you can do now is like there's like a training plan on the site. There's like material and stuff, but also the cool thing about it is like you can connect all your ratings, so you can see like your online ratings and your OTB ratings all in one place, and you can
Hmm.
just see your like your graphs. Um, and if you track your training, like basically it's to help people track like what they're doing, to track their progress. We now have this
Mm-hmm.
thing that's called a heat map that shows you like how many hours you worked on every day. So it's very motivating
Mm.
because the more hours you work, the more color you get on your heat map, and then you kind of want to fill it up all nice. So it's like maybe it'll
That's
help. It'll
like
help
a
motivate you
very
to.
advanced website.
Yeah, yeah, no, we got a real tech guy working on it. Multiple people now. So it's a real site. I promise. ChessDojo.club for anyone curious.
All right. I guess me and my chat will be providing a lot of feedback soon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, what we can do if you're free sometime is I'd be happy to just give you a tour of the site. So we'll get you an account, and then I can just show you like the different things you can do on it.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, that could work too. Awesome.
Sweet. Great.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you. I'm definitely keen on doing more lessons in the future.
Cool. I'm glad to hear
And
it. I like being helpful, especially to streamers. It's so hard to play chess as a streamer. I think people don't get it. So always
yeah,
happy
like
to
I
be
was talking
support.
about it with Melik, and he said like you have to be ready that everything you will be working on will be there available for everyone. And if you
Hmm.
want to prepare a new line, you have to do it on a secret account, potentially on another website, and you cannot stream it. And like when you stream, sometimes your brain just switches off and you start automatically playing something that you just got comfortable with, and then that's
Mm-hmm.
it. The line is gone.
Right.
So how to do it? It's like you're handicapped when you are playing OTB chess. You cannot hide anything.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. You're also handicapped online because you can't play like your main stuff, and you're like always figuring out, okay, what do I play this game? Yeah, actually, that's a great topic. What I often do is I mix it up a bit. Um, so sometimes I'll play my main stuff online,
Mm-hmm.
but then my idea is that it forces me to then review those games and look at it because I know like I can't just play stuff online and then not review it because that someone will
Mm-hmm.
prep for it and that'll be a disaster. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes I'll just play like I'll just decide, okay, this is now my blitz opening. I'm just gonna play this in blitz only. I'm never gonna play it in classical, so I don't care. I'm just gonna play this in blitz, and then you kind of know like, okay, you have this like safe repertoire that you're not really touching in classical. It's more your blitz repertoire, and maybe you will play in classical, but okay, only on like special occasions. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of separate it. And then, but then, yeah, it's like you have to practice your real stuff at some point. So that means either having an alt account that you can't stream from, um,
Mm-hmm.
or um, or just playing off stream. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
what you can do is you can play on an alt account and just hide the name from your chat. And if someone wanted to, they can still figure out like what your alt username is, but at
Or
least
they
that would
have to
take them a lot of work.
manually watch all your streams and make notes and write down all of your moves.
Yeah.
But then it's a win anyway, right? Because then more people are watching your streams.
Yeah, it's a win anyway. And at least like yeah, so that'll help you when it comes to like opening tree. So if you're playing anything off your main account, then it won't show up in your opening tree, and so you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about that.
But then you cannot do all of this 2100 by 30th November, all I dye my hair challenges.
True. Yes.
Because then how do you prove that you actually have that rating if they don't know your name of your account?
You could do actually one time it was funny. I had this like 2700 like blitz thing that I was trying to do, and I'd already hit it on my alt account, but I couldn't tell anyone. it's my alt account, so I was like trying to hit it on my main account, but then I had the confidence that I could do it because I already hit it, on one account. So